It's time for another half hour of Hatteberg's People.
Coming up.
Every day out here, no matter how dreary it would seem normally, is a spectacle, and it's beautiful. There's no such thing as a depressing day.
Fred Aldrich was a man of many talents and pursuits who lived life his own way. See how this Renaissance man of Northeast Kansas found contentment in simple, solitary pursuits. Plus,
when you're young, you can't wait to get out of your little small hometown, and then when you're old, you can't wait to get back to it.
They were new beginnings to an old story, a young cowboy and cowgirl who loved their life together on the prairie, simple and timeless. See all the things they love to share with others on their Flint Hills Dude Ranch. And we'll have this.
This has been a good year, and with you here, it's much better.
Nobody is more important than your mom. Be good to her. Larry always was. Wait till you see this touching tribute from 2002. Might want to grab a Kleenex. Hi, I'm Susan Peters.
And I'm Larry Hatteberg. We'll have those stories and more on this edition of Hatteberg's People. These stories are like old friends. Their lives radiate from the screen like prophets of the past. They were teachers, but not in a classroom. Instead, they taught about life to those around them who cared to listen, and I was their student.
Change comes easier for some of us than for others, but in most cases, there's just no stopping it.
Yes, such was the case in little Cowley County town where, to some people, a computer was a four-letter word. Now, it may still be for some, but in 2001, the people of Atlanta were divided. Did City Hall really need a computer? Mayor Jim Sturdivant said yes.
He's just a big, yes, love to play, don't you?
With one of his favorite dogs, Mayor Jim Sturdivant presides over the city of Atlanta, Kansas.
Too many vacant buildings, but it's possible that the day for this kind of community as a functioning business district may well be over.
Atlanta's downtown may not be what it used to be, but Kathleen's still over at the bank. Folks still get their mail. And old Dennis King keeps the dogs warm in his shop.
Yeah.
But the real hot news is at City Hall.
It was time to move on, and it was past time.
The city purchased its first and only computer.
I felt that there were some things that needed doing, and if we don't get around to doing them ourselves right now, there'll be another 10 years.
It just seems to be kind of a waste of money to some people yet. They just don't understand.
You want to go into more recent times, our ledger books look like this.
City Clerk Debbie Firebaugh understands. Up until just a few weeks ago, she was entering all the city's numbers in this old ledger by hand.
While you're still getting the computerized system started, you're sitting there going, I can't wait. Maybe another month and we'll be able to get out of this book.
Not too long ago, our most modern piece of equipment. They're museum pieces now.
It is, along with the old addressograph machine that used to send water bills to residents.
I just think it's one of those things that it wasn't a priority for the city at the time because it had always been done just the way we did it.
City Hall may say 1912, but now there's a new sound heard down Main Street.
The spirit of the community is great.
And spirits may get even higher. The mayor says this closed cafe may soon reopen. The town now has a fax machine, and spring can't be far away.
We've come a long way in the last couple of years.
Well, Mayor Jim Sturdivant died 10 years later. Now, 20 years after getting that first computer, townsfolk have warmed up to the idea. The city has upgraded to a newer model, but the current Atlanta mayor says City Hall still has just one, and that's all it needs.
I'm going to Atlanta, Kansas now.
I knew you would celebrate that because, you know, a lot of people don't like computers.
Yeah.
You know, technically.
They're challenging, intrusive, but they do keep us in touch with people from long, long ago. So
they do, and they do provide jobs for a lot of IT people, for people who don't know how to use the computer.
That's true, too.
So that's some good news.
All right, some people are content to fit in and just be one of the group. Nothing wrong with that. But others, like Fred Aldrich, march to the beat of their own drum.
I love this story. Fred was a true Renaissance man, as they say. He stood out for many of his interests and talents, and also for where he lived.
His music echoes down country roads, across ripening fields of wheat, accenting the solitude of the quiet countryside. Fred Aldrich is known not as a classical pianist, but as the man who built the tower in rural Jefferson County near Lawrence. The tower is his home, his refuge from the world. It is a place where nature and man live in quiet harmony. Climbing to the top of Fred's Victorian tower requires some agility. His staircase isn't exactly what you'd expect, but then neither is Fred. Most people don't like climbing stairs like these, but Fred doesn't mind a bit.
Oh, not really. It keeps me young.
Fred is unique. He owns a construction company, yet studied classical music. He's a carpenter and importer of Oriental art, a complicated man who yearns for a simpler life.
Every day out here, no matter how dreary it would seem normally, is a spectacle, and it's beautiful. There's no such thing as a depressing day. It's always beautiful from this height. And I think it lends a lot of perspective. It makes problems seem smaller when you're looking down on them.
The existence of the tower says something about the man who built it.
I think for me it's an expression of the freedom to be up in the air, the freedom to be up here. I don't know if it's as much of an escape as it is just a place to, you know, to put things in perspective, to be still.
Another place to be still and to reflect is at the pond. Fred dug this pond with a backhoe, and here, like the tower, he is one with nature. His philosophy for living is simple.
Enjoying each moment of each day and all those special things that most of us let pass by. The sound of the whippoorwill and the frogs and the coyotes in the distance, and just the sound of the rippling water as it comes down the hill into the pond.
But it's the tower that's this man's tranquilizer, his place to think, to watch, and to be. I'm Larry Hatteberg.
Well, on top of everything else, Fred also published 5 novels during his lifetime, and he was a close friend of famed author William Burroughs.
By the time Fred passed away in 2020, we're told his tower had burned down. He was living in a country home near Oskaloosa. Fred Aldrich was just 75.
I had the greatest time, Sue. I have to tell you, I had the greatest time on that story because Fred Aldrich was one of those really Renaissance men, as we said at the beginning, who you meet kind of once in a lifetime, and he saw life through different eyes. And seeing his life through his eyes was remarkable. He's one of those once in a lifetime people you meet.
Really?
Because always remember him.
You've done a lot of Hatteberg's people, so for you to say that means a lot.
It was a story that meant a lot to me because I knew I was with someone extraordinary.
He certainly was, and couldn't you just listen to his piano forever and ever?
I could, I could, and I have the visual images of those moments.
You still do?
I still do, yeah.
He made his mark.
He did.
Riding and roping have been a part of the Kansas story since the first settlers rolled in a couple hundred years ago.
Well, in 1994, it was a job, a lifestyle, and a passion for a young couple in this next story. They embraced the simplicity and timelessness of the Kansas prairie.
You expect certain things on the prairie. The big sky, the animals, and the grizzled old cowboys with faces etched by the sun and wind. Perhaps, but not on this ranch.
The heifer's in here. That old roping steer. Oh, that big slow one's in here too.
Colette and Destry Lynn are new beginnings to an old story. They've taken over the Prairie Star Guest Ranch near Cassidy, but these college-age folks are no stranger to the prairie heritage.
I think it's very important to maintain what's left as far as traditions and the land. I think that's what's important to me. You know, and my dad had taught me how to take care of the land and cattle and the old-fashioned way of doing it. And I think it's very important. I want to show my kids that way.
Sharing these scenes is what they hope to do for others. The prairie, the polecat, and a misnamed dog called Flash. This is home now.
My mom lives in Orlando, Florida, and I was there for 5 days, and after 2, I was ready to come home.
When you're young, you can't wait to get out of your little small hometown, and then when you're old, you can't wait to get back to it.
Married only 10 weeks, but don't let their youth fool you. Home is a saddle. Home is the prairie. Home is Flash on the run.
But once you get out here, then it seems that, you know, you just relax, and it's very peaceful and fulfilling.
Some call the land empty.
Yeah, there's nothing there, but it's nothing physical to see, but it's what you feel inside. The relaxing, stress release type of atmosphere that we have here.
With rustic cabins waiting for stressed-out city folks, these yet-to-be grizzled young ranchers have little time to get away. The ranch is a jealous mistress, but they don't complain.
I feel sorry for those people that they can't be out here. I never am jealous of. I feel very lucky, and it's because I'm doing what I love. I'm very happy. Very happy. I couldn't be any happier, actually.
And so is a dog named Flash.
27 years later, Colette lives in El Dorado and is in the real estate business, specializing in ranch and farmland. Now, she continues to work on that same ranch, which her brother now manages.
It's no longer a dude ranch, however, and she and Destry are no longer married. He now lives in Altamont and works as an EMT.
Well, life changes, you know, for everybody. But just being out on the prairie, I remember when I did that story with him, just being out on the prairie, it's a beautiful place, it's quiet, and you really become part of nature, really one with nature during that time.
But it's not a dude ranch anymore.
Not a dude ranch anymore.
I don't like change.
Change is part of life.
I know. You've always told me that. It doesn't make me like it anymore.
I know.
One of the staples of small-town America has always been the downtown barbershop. It's where men have traditionally gone to get a haircut, a shave, and of course to solve the world's problems.
But a good barber isn't always easy to find, and that's why Gerald Schweitzer found himself doing a lot of driving.
Hi, Everett.
Hello there.
How do you want to cut, Everett?
Ashland, Kansas, Geralds Schweitzer's Barbershop.
I just kind of enjoy it.
Protection, Kansas, Geralds Schweitzer's Barbershop.
You better do a good job this time because you're on TV.
Coldwater, Kansas, Geralds Schweitzer's Barbershop.
My wife says I need a hearing aid more than I need glasses.
I couldn't hear her and she couldn't hear me, and he said that's marital deafness.
So you say, how can that be? Well, Gerald may be the only traveling barber in the whole state.
And I cut hair for about 4 generations of people in all 3 towns. Wednesdays in Coldwater and Fridays protection.
Time not a problem to this barber. In Ashland, it's Everett Larrick's turn in the chair. He's also Gerald's neighbor.
Schweitzer had 5 children, and they were the nicest kids we could ever had for neighbors. They were doing something we didn't like, just go tell them, and wished we wouldn't do that, and that was the end of it.
In protection, Tom Ruckner, also Geralds' mechanic.
Yeah. One time I hadn't cut an old boy's hair for years, and he shows up in the barber shop. I didn't recognize his face, but when he sat down, I recognized his neck.
And since Gerald has had the occasional fender bender, this is how Tom pays for his haircuts. Not here, but instead with a notch on the wall that applies to the next fender fixing.
That's the only way he gets paid. Just a mark on the wall.
Then it's on the road once again, over to Coldwater, where John Lehman is waiting in the chair.
I wish he'd let it rain.
I always said God had to be a barber because he kept hair on the sides and let people go bald on top, you know?
With tonic, time, and talk, Gerald Schweitzer cashed in on life.
Is that about right, John? Looks about right?
The traveling barber with friends instead of customers. There's always one more story.
We'll see you. Take her easy.
See you next year.
Okay.
There's always one more town.
You know, I just enjoy it.
Now, in addition to operating 3 barber shops, Gerald worked for a time for the Clark County Sheriff's Office as a deputy and a dispatcher. After all, he had 5 kids to support.
Gerald finally retired in 2016. He passed away in 2020 at age 78. But when he had all those barber shops, can you imagine? He knew all the Clark County gossip.
Oh, he
because
did.
you'd go from town to town.
Oh, it was great.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, and everybody who went into that barber shop will remember it because, as we know, a barber shop in a small town is kind of the center of everything.
Everything.
Everything. So
it sure
it's too
is.
bad he's passed away, but he will be remembered.
Absolutely. Through Hatteberg's people.
Through Hatteberg's
Thank you very much, Larry.
Quite welcome.
Many of us reach a point when we start looking back and remembering the simpler ways of life we used to enjoy. Well, just outside Cheney, a man named Charlie Wolf found that collecting antiques helped keep the past alive in his life. Larry did this story in 1989.
But when you lived here 74 years, you love it, that's all.
The weather is changing on Charlie Wolf's farm. Weather, like time, is a constant here.
Well, it's a wonderful place to live, and it's a good place to raise a family.
Charlie's place looks like a farm.
Out here, you can do what you want to when you want to, and you can't do that in the city.
But Charlie doesn't till the soil. Instead, an accident 20 years ago forced him to farm memories.
That's a hedge trimmer. Oh, you like playing a violin, just jumping back and forth.
The trimmer is just one of thousands of items Charlie has collected over the past 20 years. His old dairy barns now house items from buggies to radios.
Give me your help not to win votes alone.
Started small, one piece, bring it home and refinish it.
The collection grew from there. It had to. Charlie had to have something to take his mind off his injury.
Well, I had to do something. I can't go fishing. I couldn't think about myself. You can't do that. I was paralyzed from the waist down. And, well, I had no hobby. I thought a hobby was a waste of time.
But collecting wasn't.
It's a chord organ, a gem, like a little gem. It's a roller. They call it a cob. $2.75 new. They had a better model. This is hard to find because they give this to kids to play with and they wore them all out.
In nearby barns, even more history.
And you start to get bored or something, and anything to get out of the house and come out here and you spend hours just when you know where everything is.
He's right. You can spend hours out here remembering from the corners of your mind. That sound? Probably the wind. Charles Wolf, the man some call the memory farmer.
I never stopped to think about it.
Well, Charles lived to be 88, and before he died in 2004, he held several auctions to sell off all his old treasures. His daughter-in-law, Roseanne, says Charlie got great joy out of passing these things on to other people who also appreciated them. A lot of people love history, and I'm sure they had great finds from Charlie's little museum of all of those antique items.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
I wish we could get them all together again, but several people around Kansas are enjoying them now.
They're very happy, thanks to Charlie.
Well, we're going to go to Dickinson County now and to the town of Harrington, where a century-old downtown building got a new start. And the owner was from the other side of the ocean.
Richard McFarland Clark and his wife Cheryl traveled from Wales to get a fresh start in a little Kansas cafe.
How is it? Okay?
It's fine.
Great. Good. The joy I get is when people come in and we just have fun. It's the banter of having fun.
Oh man, it makes my mouth water.
As the spring rains make for cloudy days over the Mansion restaurant in Harrington, it's made up for by the banter among the customers and the cafe's owner, Richard McFarland Clark.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's hot and it's good, but oh, it's hot.
And they eat the food and they enjoy the food. That's the joy.
Now, Richard may be from Wales, but he fits into the Kansas small-town landscape like a native.
That's good.
Yeah, we only had the first tiny bit of it. You haven't touched it since. Yeah. It's meat and potato country, meat and potato views, and that's great. That's not a bad thing. It's one of the nicest things that you can possibly say about America.
He and his wife Cheryl began the cafe over a year ago after going through difficult times in Britain. Cheryl is currently in Wales after suffering a heart attack on a visit there in January. Richard looks forward to her return and keeps the old cafe humming.
The one thing I found here is, if someone can help you, they will.
His restaurant caters to a population who loves burgers, chicken, and steak, but he also brings food from his own country, like lamb soup.
The more people you meet, the less you're going to be afraid of them.
With a strong Welsh accent, he has adapted the cafe to the times. When business began to fall off, he created a recession menu with meals for $5 or less, but he didn't cut back on the portions.
We left the food the same and just made it cheaper. And we see more people, and people appreciate the fact, and it's the most popular thing we do is the things on the recession menu. It's a challenge, like everything in the world's a challenge, but it's one we enjoy.
On this particular day, the good news was business was good. The bad news was he ran out of certain foods.
You have chicken fried chicken, but we don't have any steak at all. We sold out, and we don't have any beef. And we talked earlier about the kindness of the people here. Well, I've run out of steak, I've run out of roast beef, which is the two most favourite things in the place, and no one's really shouting at me. That's a joy, because sometimes people would be really on top of you when you've run out of two of the major things that they eat. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing? I'd say that the best part of running this restaurant are the people that come to it. Ladies, I'll be with you in a second. 2 Butterburgers. Enjoy.
Unfortunately, health problems forced Richard to close the cafe after a couple of years. Now, at some point, he moved to Kansas City, where he helped open a culinary school in 2017. Well, that closed 2 years later. We're not quite sure what he's up to now. If anybody knows, just write us right here at KPTS.
We try and update you on all of these Hatteberg's people, and people really enjoy the updates, like where are the people now?
Right.
And we make an attempt, but sometimes we don't know, we can't find the person. So if you know, give us a call here at KPTS. Mother's Day comes once a year, but being a mom, of course, is 24/7, 365 days a year. And it doesn't end when the kids grow up.
In 2002, I shared the story of my mom, her life, and what she meant to me.
When that red light's on a buzzing, is that the taking a picture?
When the red light's on, you're on and people are watching you.
This is a face of a long life, a life well lived. My mom, Mary Hatteberg Powers. Without her guidance, I wouldn't be talking to you today. With her constant love, no matter how insolent or childish I was, she always forgave me and urged me to achieve what I thought was impossible. She was a child of the Depression. Nothing was impossible after that. She outlived 2 husbands, buried an infant daughter. Born poor with 5 siblings surrounding her, that close-knit family proved to be a living model of caring and compassion.
This has been a good year, and with you here, it's much better.
We're close, she and I. Always have been. She was the first nurse to graduate from the Newton Hospital School of Nursing way back in 1933.
Very important to me. I felt like that if I could do that, I would be able to help some other people. I worked hard at the hospital, and I loved it, every minute of it. And I think that helps if you are doing something you like, then you'll be a lot happier.
And folks told me time and again, your mom is the best nurse I ever had. I'm not surprised. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, she helped my father in the bakery business. And like nursing, it was horrendous hours and difficult times. But she always had time for me. She calmed me. She steadied me. She loved me. And she was there for me. Her hands are soft like her heart. Her eyes warm and beautiful to a grateful child. And over the years, I haven't said I love you often enough. I don't think any of us ever do.
But I think that one of the happiest times was when your father and you played with the train, electric train, and it went clear through the house.
I owe so much to this woman whose life is paved with love and compassion. She taught me about the good times, and she taught me about hard times. In the winter of her life, she is like an old lion full of slow ceremony.
Larry, I love you very much. You know that.
And I love you too, Mom, just as I always have.
You know, it was a privilege for me to photograph my mom.
Yeah.
Now, my mom didn't so much like it when I was doing it, because she didn't like to be on camera, and this whole television shtick was not her thing. But for my daughters and for the grandchildren that were yet to come at that time, it was really a moment where I could capture a piece of her as what she meant to me. And so that's what this story was about. And I am so glad I did that.
Oh my gosh, Larry, it's priceless.
It was priceless to me, and I'm sure the folks watching, you know, it's just another woman that we've done a story on. But for me, it was Mom. And it was just a chance to share my mom with the rest of my family.
Isn't that neat? And Larry, you have such a way of catching pictures that bring out the inner beauty of everybody.
You are very sweet, Sue. Very sweet.
We're going to end it now, because we've had laughter, we've had tears, everything. Yeah. So that's all for this week. Our email address, hattebergspeople@kpts.org. If you have a question or comment. Until next time, I'm Susan Peters.
And I'm Larry Hatteberg. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again soon.